in these remote mountainous areas, it does take time to get to some of the communities. And we know that landslides is also another side effect of earthquakes. So some of the roads will be blocked. So it will take time for them to complete that search and rescue.
Can you paint us a bit of a picture for how urgent the situation is right now for people whose homes may have been destroyed, who are currently unhoused, especially considering the current temperatures in that part of the world?
Yeah, certainly. It's very similar to the situation here in Nepal, where it's winter. We're in the midst of winter and it's extremely cold, particularly at nighttime. The Tibetan plateaus are at a high altitude and the temperatures at nighttime are dropping below zero. So it is really urgent that shelter is provided, whether that even be simple tarpaulins and blankets and warmth. This is really very urgent to reduce further casualties from this earthquake.
And is help getting to where it's needed at this point? Is support coming in and getting up into those more rural areas that might be harder to reach?
Well, it always takes time. We know that the Nepal government is continuing to go out to the more remote villages in the Himalayas on the Nepal side of the border. I imagine the same thing is happening in China. It will take time to get to some of those, but the search and rescue will be ongoing. We're really closely monitoring to see if more support is required, and when it is required, then World Vision is ready to step in. We're also really closely monitoring the impact on children, because children are very vulnerable to these types of events, and it can be very traumatic for them. And they're very vulnerable also to the weather and to, unfortunately, a variety of protection issues. So we'll be advocating as well to ensure that children are kept at the forefront of safety measures.
What has the international response been like so far in terms of aid being provided and support being provided to affected communities?
So it is early days, and in these types of situations, we work hand in hand with the government. So as the government requests support, then we are prepared and pre-positioned to be able to step in with that support. Areas that we are typically working in is supporting with the shelter kits, with winterization kits to make sure people are kept warm, with safe food and water supplies, and ensuring that there is some type of psychosocial counselling to just address some of the trauma. For children, it'll be really in the next week or so looking to see how we can normalise their life, get them back to some form of education where they can be kind of back in a normal situation to help them recover.
There are reports that I mentioned earlier of at least 1,000 structures that have been damaged. And I know that earthquakes are common in that part of the world, but what is the state of infrastructure in Tibet more generally? Are buildings designed to be able to withstand earthquakes and disasters like this?
Unfortunately, in a lot of places, they're not, and particularly in the villages. So it's very similar to what we see in the northern parts of Nepal, where the construction is generally made from rocks, from traditional materials, traditional methods, rocks, mud, stacked up. And these types of building are unfortunately very vulnerable to earthquakes because they just crumble very easily. So one of the emphases will be on ensuring that we build back better, that we train masonries so that they can build stronger structures and teach the local people how to become more resilient, whether it be in their response mechanisms, their recovery mechanisms, and even their construction of their houses.
And in terms of the longer term response, I know you've mentioned getting counselling for children, getting children back into educational facilities. Beyond that, what do the priorities need to be in terms of just getting these affected areas back up and running again as usual?
Yeah, so a lot of it will be on rehabilitation of infrastructure, ensuring that is rebuilt in a resilient manner. Earthquakes are extremely common in this part of the world. We're on a very active seismic plates. And the other one is livelihood recovery. So there will be a lot of families that have lost their main sources of livelihood through this damage. So helping the affected families to rebuild their livelihoods, and again, in a way that they can be supported to be more resilient to future events.